What's the fastest you've seen a harmless joke turn fatal? I'll never forget seeing the new kid, Ben, sitting alone at his desk that Tuesday morning, tears streaming down his face while the entire class erupted in laughter around him. He was almost completely deaf and had been an easy target every single day since he'd transferred to our school. A few guys stood behind him, their mouths moving in exaggerated yells that Ben couldn't hear, making obscene gestures and mimicking sign language while Ben just saw everyone laughing at him and pointing. Gabe would take it to the next level, as he'd go as far as to scream right behind him, knowing he wouldn't react. The math teacher had stepped out to make copies, and in those 5 minutes, they'd already reduced Ben to tears. His eyes darted around the room desperately, trying to understand what was so funny, what he'd done wrong this time, but he just couldn't understand. I tried to help him, but every attempt just made things worse for both of us. When I stood up and told them to stop during lunch last week, he just laughed and said I had a crush on the stupid deaf kid, which became another joke that followed me through the halls. At least 3 or 4 incidents every single day, always when teachers weren't looking, always calculated to make Ben feel the biggest loser in our whole school. I reported it to the principal twice, but she just said boys will be boys, and that Ben needed to learn to stand up for himself. How could he stand up to harassment he couldn't even hear? Gabe was a literal monster, but I had no idea how far he was about to go. I made one last attempt to handle this the right way by going directly to the guidance counselor with my documented evidence. I showed him 3 weeks of detailed notes, explaining how the bullying was escalating, how Ben had started eating lunch in the bathroom, how his grades were dropping because he was too anxious to focus in class. I told her all about how Gabe had been harassing him daily, making his life a living hell. She looked at my notebook, sighed, and said that I should focus on my own education. I thought she was joking at first, but then I realized the guidance counselor was friends with Gabe's mom, and I knew she didn't believe any of it. Ben needs to learn to communicate better with his peers. Communicate better? How the hell was he supposed to communicate with people he couldn't even hear? I was about to say that, but then a loud ringing sound went off in my ear. The fire alarm started blaring right next to me, and everyone filed out in the usual chaos of an unexpected drill. I was already outside when I noticed those same guys huddled together, laughing nervously but trying to play it cool. They were talking about something, but I had too much on my mind to listen. The building was actually smoking. I'd never seen this before, because this wasn't actually a drill. We all stood outside watching it when I heard one of them say, "Yo, we should probably tell someone." Now I was listening. Gabe told them to be quiet, but another guy said, "Guys, we can't just leave him there. That fire is huge." I knew who him was immediately. I asked what they meant. Gabe had tears in his eyes. Ben's still in there. We left him as a joke because he couldn't hear the alarm. The building was now engulfed in flames, windows shattering from the heat, and Ben was still inside. I felt my heart stopping. I immediately ran to grab someone. I just ran, screaming at the first firefighter I saw, "There's a deaf student still inside. He can't hear the alarm." The firefighter thought I was joking because they already gave the order not to enter. The flames were huge, and I could feel them from all the way out there. But then I saw him realize it was serious, and he completely panicked. 5 of them ran inside, and we all stood there for minutes, waiting to see if poor Ben had burned alive. They pulled him out, but he wasn't breathing at all. He had inhaled too much smoke and passed out in that classroom after the flames spread to the hallway. There were police everywhere, and the school district launched a massive investigation that revealed all their bullying incidents that had been ignored. Gabe and his friends were crying, thinking they had just killed that poor kid. His mom knew me, so I was allowed to visit him in the hospital. I couldn't believe what I saw. His mom was sobbing in my arms, saying, "You saved my baby," over and over. And knowing that if I hadn't spoken up when everyone else stayed silent, if I hadn't run to that firefighter, Ben would have died alone in that room, unable to even hear the horror going on. He woke up the next day, but was never the same.